Welcome, guys. So we have in part first we have discussed about the nation, nationalism, and different forms of nationalism. That is, liberal nationalism, conservative nationalism, expansionist nationalism, and anti-colonial nationalism. So now we'll discuss about the state. The state before moving on to the concept of state, we try to understand these words, that is sovereign, democratic, and republic. So here the word sovereignty means the independent authority of a country, and it signifies that country is not dependent on any other state or any country for taking its decisions, and it is independent to take its own decisions, formulate laws, and govern. So when people of nation want to become a sovereign country, it means they are demanding the right to self-determination, and freedom is an expression of a right to self-determination. So it is this urge for political self-determination that leads a nation in the direction of a statehood. So when does a nation become a state? A state must have the following characteristics to qualify for a statehood, that is sovereignty, independent government, territory, and population. So what is the definition of state? So definition of state is nothing but the highest association of a community, or a state is a political community. Uh, its presence is felt almost all the human activity like education, social welfare, defense, law, and all are these all are the activities is done by the state. So there are numerous thinkers. They have defined the concept of a state. So according to the Aristotle, the state is a union of families and villages, and having for its ends a perfect and self-sufficing life, by which we mean a happy and honorable life. And the words of John Baudin, um, who is a French jurist and a philosopher. So he defines a state as an association of families and their possession governed by a supreme power and by reason. Then there is another political thinker who has defined a state as it is a uh, it is people organized for law within the definite territory. And the Harold Lasky, who is a British political theorist, he defines a state, a territorial society divided into government and subjects claiming within its allotted physical area supremacy over all other institutions. So the state has the following elements. Without these elements, state is incomplete. So what are the elements that we are discussing? It is sovereignty, government, and population, territory. So these are the elements that we are discussing today. Sovereignty, that we have just discussed. What is sovereignty? Sovereignty is nothing but it is a legal term that specifies the independence of a particular country. It means that country is legally sovereign with its own independent constitution. For example, India became politically independent in 1947, but it became the sovereign state in 1950 after the constitution came into effect. Then another element, that is government. Government is every sovereign state, it must have a government. The government must be a sovereign and independent. For example, when India was a British colony, there was a government of India, but it was not a sovereign independent government. So it was under the British Parliament and the British authorities. So therefore, the prior to the independence, India was not a state. The institutions of a state are public institutions. So these public institutions include various organs of the government like executive, legislature, judiciary, bureaucracy. So these public institutions are responsible for making policies, laws, and taking decision and implementing them. So here we have to make distinction between the public institutions and private institutions. So private institutions belong to the civil society, whereas this uh, which sorry private institutions belong to civil society, and it includes the private businesses, clubs, etc. And in public institutions, it has the legitimacy to act on behalf of the state. So, so the third element, that is territory. So it refers to the geographic boundaries of a state. A state must have a specific territory. Without a territory, we cannot establish the government. Uh, we cannot have a state. So a state must have a specific territory and areas of the state within which state has the authority to govern. Um that is, it is called as a jurisdiction. So jurisdiction is the legal power that is state has to take decisions. So these are the elements of a state, and the last element, that is population. Without the population, a state cannot exist. Similar, without the territory, state cannot exist. So these are the related, interrelated to each other. So this population have it can have any amount of diversity in terms of language, religion, culture, or ethnicity. So a state, it can comprise many nations. For example, Soviet Union had people of many nationalities like Russians, uh, Latvians, Estonians, Ukrainians. Similarly, the United Kingdom consists of uh, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. So these are the uh, elements of state. So now we will move on to the state and government concept. So we'll try to understand the similarities or the differences between the state and government, not the similarities. So we normally use term state and government without understanding the difference between them. So 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 they are different concept basically. State, as we have seen above, is a political organization created for the satisfaction of common needs of the people, whereas government is instrument or the agent of the state through which will we formulate or we express, you know, or we provide services to the citizens. So government is main wing of a state, and it is main nature is administrative. So law and order, welfare, etc. are the main functions of the state, and these functions are performed by or performed through the government. So government has three parts that we have studied in our in civics or in 10th standard or ninth standard maybe. So the government has three parts, that is the executive, legislature, and judiciary. So we will learn these concepts of government in section 2 of this book. Now we just focus on the differences between the state and government. So what is the difference between state and government? State is an abstract concept, whereas governmental is a concrete reality. Second, state is more extensive than a government, and it includes all the public institutions and all members of the society, whereas government is a part of the state. Third, a state is permanent in nature, whereas government exists for a specific time period. Systems of government can be changed, and governments come and go. The state is impersonal authority, it is political neutral. The government has an ideological agenda, and it wants to implement the policies to achieve that agenda. Whereas the state is a sovereign entity, and the government is the source of authority of the source of authority of the government is a state. So government means through which the authority of state is exercised. So we have studied the concept of nation, nationalism, state and government in this chapter. In next chapter we will study about other concepts like liberty, rights, equality and justice. So these are concepts which deals directly with the role of the state. So thank you all.